Trump owns the Republican Party, and so as a consequence, he can put his thumb on the scale on major foreign policy issues. That's a pretty big deal. But also just generally the illegitimacy in perception of U.S. institutions, the executive, the judiciary, the Congress, but also the public school system, the church. I mean, the media. When you look at how Americans feel
Right.
about their institutions over the last 20, 30 years, it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And that to me is the structural underpinning here.
The getting worse and worse and worse seems to be the heart of the matter, what anybody's politics is. Governor Haley cited out the statistics showing the poll tilt. Ian Bremmer, forget about Spiro Agnew, who is the American silent majority?
I think they're people that feel like their leaders have left them. They're people that no longer believe in the American dream. When you and I were kids, the United States had the greatest class mobility of any of the OECD nations. Today, it has the least. And no matter how optimistic and individualistic you might be as a nation, eventually you get hit in the face enough, and you change your view. And I think that that's a big piece of. I mean, the U.S. still has incredible wealth and has all of this entrepreneurship. And you'd rather be at the United States than any other country in the world in the aggregate. But people don't live in the aggregate, and that's what we're experiencing.
So, Ian, I'd love to get your views on how perhaps the U.S. is viewed by, I don't know, our allies, our foes. I mean, it seems like it's been an up and down, whether, with the Trump administration, their policy for NATO and just kind of foreign policy versus Biden trying to maybe get back to normalcy. How do you think the folks outside the U.S. view us?
Incredibly inconsistent.
Yep.
I mean, not a country that you can as easily count on, and therefore a lot of hedging behavior going on, even though there aren't necessarily any good options. Look, I mean, I take the point that we should not be blackmailing our allies to pay, or else we won't defend them. But on the other side of that argument, what are we? If for decades they refuse to actually make good on their defense commitments, should there be no consequences at all? Because that appears to be the ex ante position, and that's not okay either, right? That it's true that if Trump tells you we won't defend you, we'd like Russia to attack you if you don't pay your 2% into GDP of defense, if you're not doing an adequate job defending yourself, that undermines NATO, and we've heard that from the Secretary General. But it's also true that if Canada and Germany and France and Italy and Spain, I mean the biggest economies, all consistently refuse to invest in their own defense, that also emboldens Putin, right? That emboldens Putin too. So how is it that none of our leaders seem to get it right? We just bounce back and forth between these populist extremes, and don't think long term about what makes for a strong alliance.
So what do you believe is the realistic future of NATO? I mean, because boy, that is front and center now with what's going on in Ukraine.
I think that peak NATO was last year.
Okay.
Putin made a huge mistake. You should never, ever interrupt your adversary when they're screwing up. And NATO was getting more divided and becoming less relevant for many years. The Europeans just were, I wouldn't say they were giving up on it, but they were certainly taking advantage of it. And that led to a backlash that you saw reflected with Trump's America First. And then Putin did the stupidest possible thing. He made NATO as desirable and relevant as humanly possible by trying to overthrow Zelensky and sends his troops storming toward Kiev. And not only did that make the Germans start spending money on their defense, but it also expanded NATO, made the Finns, made the Swedes want to join, made everybody realize that NATO was an indispensable alliance. Unfortunately, Putin understands that he cares a lot more about this issue than anybody else does. and he's willing to wait everybody out. And that now appears to be working in his favor after 2 years of it
Right.
not.